Thanks for tuning in to the Drive On podcast, where we are focused on giving hope and strength to the entire military community. Whether you're a veteran, active duty, guard, reserve, or a family member, this podcast will share inspirational stories and resources that are useful to you. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and now let's get on with the show. When things go sideways, will you be prepared? Some people are concerned they might have to go for a long time without electricity or even food. That's why I want to introduce you to 4patriots.com. Get preparedness products you can use now, and that could save your life later. My favorite is 4Patriots' new solar generator, the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. It uses the endless free power of the sun to power lights, your TV, medical equipment, even run your fridge. Plus, it's expandable and comes with a free solar panel. Or pick up one of 4Patriots' best-selling survival food kits. Delicious tasting and designed to last for 25 years. They even have kits with real meat, and if the power's out, no worries. Just boil water over a fire, simmer, and serve. You'll enjoy a hot meal and stay safe in a crisis. More smart people than ever are finding 4Patriots. Over 2 million customers trust them, and you might have even seen them on TV. I had the folks at 4Patriots set up a special page for you at 4patriots.com/drive-on so that listeners of this podcast can see this week's discounts and deals before they go away. Go to 4patriots.com/drive-on, but hurry, these deals won't last long. Save more and get peace of mind now by going to 4patriots.com/drive-on. Hey everybody, welcome back to Drive On. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and today my guest is Kathryn Vecchio. Kathryn is here today to discuss how she's utilized her experiences and education to develop a unique intervention program utilizing expressive arts. And we'll get into that more in just a minute here. But first, I want to welcome you to the show, Kathryn. I'm really glad to have you here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the listeners and just kind of, providing a little bit of background information, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of who you are, where you came from, and how you got into doing what you're doing now?
I'm from Cleveland and came from a really proud serving family of servicemen and women. My mother's a captain in the Army. I'm really proud to say that. And anyways, I went to studied history and education and undergrad and went on to study psychology and seminary. And all of that led me to a variety of different jobs in city, county, state government, and mental health. I was a staff psychologist at a maximum security prison and worked in private practice and it also had a contract with Fort Bragg where we deployed, worked with servicemen that were being deployed and servicemen and women. So I've really had the privilege to work in a lot of different ways in personal development. And so at 62 years old, I was not ready to retire. And I thought, what has been the arc that connects a woman on death row, a serviceman or a person who is being deployed and leaving their family, a suburban couple that's on the brink of divorce, or a child on the spectrum. And I was in a group, and it occurred to me when I asked this question in one of my groups, I said, what do you feel is the greatest work of art of the last millennium? And people answer all kinds of different ways. Picasso's Guernica, the Brooklyn Bridge. This kid says something, and all of a sudden I realized the answer to that question, the arc. And the kid said, it's your life. That's the greatest work of art. And I went, oh, aha. And the aha moment for me was all of these stories I've heard over all these years. There's no 10 steps to figure out a good life, figure out a way to be content. there's no one theory in psychology that fits every situation or a way out of a messy world. If you try to impose some kind of simple answer to help a woman who's sitting in a human cage for the rest of her life, right?
Mhm.
It's nonsensical. So the point is, a person has to imagine and create this unique way out of life's problems. So I started thinking, how do we ignite imagination? Because I think that's part of what we've lost in our culture. So I started thinking, what do we do to ignite that? And COVID hit. So we developed this model where we put together supply boxes, we mailed them out, and we started Zooming these interactive, experiential, creative, expressive art programs. And all of a sudden, people who said, I'm not an artist, I can't do this, I can't do, before you know it, I've got people going down to pottery studios, taking drama classes, cooking. One kiddo is doing a podcast, cooking. And they found their canvases, and they're finding their way out and finding solutions. So, and working with veterans is, we do a lot. I teach a lot about trench art, if you're familiar with that, which is on my website. There's a little piece on trench art, which was an art form that was popularized in World War I, when our servicemen were in the trenches and the foxholes. They would take shell casings, and carve these most elaborate sculptures. I mean, we're talking ashtrays, elaborate sculptures. There's actually a museum in Louisiana, at the Trench Art Museum. It's amazing and beautiful. The point is, being creative elevated these men out of foxholes. And I hold these pieces of art and I think about it. They're eating MREs, feet in the mud, and carving these beautiful pieces of art, and it elevates them, right? So that's where this whole concept came from. And we're seeing incredible movement and shifts. So
Yeah. And so all of this is, the way I look at it is, it's a way of um, probably just grounding yourself in the present moment, and making it, um, just thinking about the soldiers that you're talking about in the trenches, who were making all these elaborate pieces of art. There's probably some, at some points there's some downtime between firefights and skirmishes that took place, and you got all these shell casings laying around on the ground. And it's not like you can just lug around a whole kiln and pottery supplies and all this kind of stuff. So you're going to make something, you're going to make it out of what's available to you, and you got these shells laying around. No one's going to miss them. So you start going to work on those, and um, it just occupies your mind so that you don't go back to those places that you don't really want to be. Right? Is that kind of the idea behind this?
yeah, and yes, another example. It's sort of like, you have the ashes or ruins or regret of a life. How do you create something from the ashes? Another aha moment for me was, I was watching a news show on the Sandy Hook story when the guy who was protesting on the radio, and he was saying that it was a big fraud, and then they came and he was in a defamation suit. Anyways, one of the mothers was talking about a program that they came up with to heal what had happened in Sandy Hook.
Mm-hmm.
As she was talking about it, I remember when the murders have happened, I was watching and I thought, how in the world are these parents ever going to find a way to have peace and joy after this event? And
Right.
I'm an incredibly optimistic person in the face of tragedy, but I can remember thinking, how's the way out? Now, fast forward to this story. They figured it out, but they had to be so creative. And what they've done, the program, I said, oh, I can barely fight back the tears. This is the enormity of the rise of the human spirit is so profound to me. The program is called Love Wins, Post-Traumatic Stress Growth. They refuse to empower it and give it power to call it disorder. And they're literally finding that these kids have compassion and kindness, forgiveness. And watching this woman, her son was the son who protected and saved lives. He was 6 years old when he was murdered. He saved lives that morning.
Mm-hmm.
And that woman so clearly had peace, lives with peace and love. And even this radio man that defiled that morning, she's free. She is free. And the point of that was, even I'm not being a creative person myself, I thought, wow, this is really an exciting way to think about living, to imagine that in any circumstance, something that all of us could probably imagine, losing a child, and in that way, there's a way out if we can throw ourselves into this idea of imagine. And so Sandy Hook is on the website as well, because I think if they could do it, surely, for sure, there's got to be a way that at least we can try.
Right.
So that's what inspires me.
And so let's get into it a little bit more and talk about what exactly it is that that you do with these folks, and how on the other side, how it helps them. Like what's the, I don't know, maybe the science behind it, and what allows people to heal from these traumas that they've experienced. Clearly, being a parent of a child and a shooting like that, no parent should ever have to bury their child, but here we are, and in the world, and people do have to do that at some point
Right.
or another. And how do you cope with that? How do you deal with that? And how do you move on, and not just exist, but how do you live like a good life after something like that?
Well, I think the first piece that's related to this idea of art is, do we see something? And this is my phone. I'll just use this as an example. This is a Kandinsky. Of course, I have art everywhere, but this
Sure.
is a Kandinsky, right? And so, what like in art are these glasses, or are they two somewhat circles
Sure.
that are side by side? So do you see murders? Do you see divorce? Or do you see something else? Can you even begin to see something else? Or do you just see the tragedy? Do you just see disappointment? Do you just see failure? Or do you see that this could be the dark night of the soul that opens the way to the hero's journey? Could your humiliation be your crucifixion that now becomes your resurrection, your opportunity to resurrect? Because you can't resurrect unless you've been crucified, right?
Okay. Yeah. Right.
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 So, but if you can't imagine that, you can't even begin to hope to get off the ground, to sort of, in my mind, I guess in my experience, I'll put it this way, I've been crucified a couple of times, let's put it that way. And I can't say I've been resurrected as many times as I probably were crucified myself. And I've probably done it to myself more. But when I didn't resurrect, it was because I didn't do this. I didn't allow, I couldn't see the possibility. So in art, when I think when people begin to open up the possibility, like I can create something. A lot of people I see, they won't even pick up a pen or paper. That I'm not an artist.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They look at a blank canvas, and I say, how many people are intimidated by it? Yes, I paint all the time. I look at a blank canvas, it always still makes me nervous. It's like, what am I going to do with that? Can I do something with it? What am I going to do? And it's like, what is that about? That I just not like comfortable to be creative. It's interesting. And so learning to be comfortable with being creative, that empowers us to address a problem, I think, with a more pliable kind of approach, so that when something happens, like a divorce, it doesn't have to be just a tragic end. It can be like, it can be the dark night of the soul, and both the opportunity to grow in ways that you never could if you would only have had the marriage that you wanted, if that makes sense.
Okay. So when you get people, involved in this, and they're looking at this blank canvas, and I've seen a lot of artists, especially veteran artists, and a lot of times their artwork is more on the dark side. There's fire and skulls and explosions and things along those lines, right? And um, a lot of it's really well done, very detailed, and for what it is, it's very well done. But it sounds like what you're saying is, that might be the thing that they're stuck on, perhaps. And it sounds like maybe if they can see something, that the good that comes from a tragedy, and they can express that, then that's maybe a first step to finding that hope of uh the better path, the better future, things along those lines. Am I kind of understanding that correctly?
Yeah, and I think it's both. I think we have to stand in front of a problem before we can move through a problem. So
Okay.
the process of being with it, painting it, exploring it, and I think the process of the painting the fire and the skulls, and really examining how that's impacted. And that's a process too, I think, that can evolve over years, and you see it coming out in different ways in veteran art. I've seen it evolve.
Yeah.
But it can be both. It can be, awareness of the tragedy of the problem and the air that comes from it. I just saw an exhibition not long ago at the National Veterans Museum here in Columbus, Ohio. We're blessed to have that here. Mary White is a well-known artist. She did an amazing exhibit of veterans from each state, and they all have different forms of PTSD, and they're both in terms of what their trauma is, and then how they've overcome, and as far as what their vocation is, or maybe surfing or something, some sort of accomplishment in their lives. And so it's both. And I really love it. And I got to meet her. She's just a lovely, lovely person. Her art, and I actually have her book. And so her name's Mary White, if you would want to look her up. But so it was lovely in that it really honors both sides of a life. And I think we get stuck sometimes in the negative, and the way when I was in graduate school, the old kind of way of doing psychology was more in the realm of what we called psychodynamic, which was a lot of talking about historical stuff. And now what's popular is a approach called positive psychology, happy psychology, and I am in the realm of coaching, consulting, doing things out in the field, and it's more of a sort of the what now, not what happened, but you have to acknowledge that narrative in order to be about what now.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think when you have something traumatic that happens, or it doesn't have to be traumatic like a death, or combat or anything like that. I mean, going through a divorce could be traumatic, any type of situation like that, right? And yeah, definitely you want to acknowledge that it happened. How has it affected you? What has changed since then? You used to be a happy-go-lucky kind of person, and now you're down and depressed, and all of that. And so, okay, well, now we see A to B, what what effect this has had on you. And like you said, now what do we do with this, and how do we move forward, and figure out how to perhaps reset you back to the person that you once were. Maybe it's not 100% possible, because all of these experiences, they affect who we are, and you're not going to get back to that. But if you were the person who was the life of the party, and now you don't even want to go to the party, maybe we can get you in the door at least. Maybe you're not the life of the party anymore, but we can get you back going to the party, and at least not completely isolating yourself away from that type of situation, right? And so I like how that has sort of changed, because dwelling on the past, to me, it feels like it just reinforces it, and just makes it like it's never going away. It's never going to change. It's always here. It's always present. That to me just doesn't feel right. When you start talking about the what now and what's next, and how do we address this? And maybe this is just me being a guy, like I want to fix things. Like when things are wrong, I want to fix it. And so probably that's the reason why I have this podcast, because I noticed there were things that were wrong, and I wanted to fix it. So here we are, and we're in the process of trying to fix it. 300 some odd episodes later, I'm still trying to fix it, but we'll get there. We'll fix it. So that's the point that I think that's where where the change can happen that really will uh, uh, help accelerate the growth in people. And I like what you were saying before with the post-traumatic stress growth, not
Right.
disorder, and whatnot. It's you're looking forward to that growth, and I'd love to know more about how that growth occurs and like how people experience that.
Yeah. Well, I have this a kiddo I was working with this summer. So interesting. Started the summer is this whole course. We actually get high school credit for it. Um, and we started the summer with it's 10 weeks of different exposures to different mediums in art, right? And week one, I can't draw. I'm not an artist to throw in the pencils. By the end of the summer, a big journal of drawing and just, Dr. Kathy, you want to see this drawing? This is and like, okay, it's kind of like, okay, gotta go. Like, okay,
Right.
what's another one? And and the how 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 did that inform how he changed? It's I can do things. I am bigger than my
Mm,
limitations. I had no idea. In the beginning of the summer, my staff, we bound a book because we took photographs all through the summer so he could see the progression. And it was amazing because he wouldn't have been able to see it if we hadn't documented it in photographs, right?
right.
It's amazing, absolutely amazing, because it's in real art pieces, and he's illuminated a beautiful human soul that otherwise would have been holed up in a room isolated, is now out in the community, going to pottery classes, going to school, going into a building. I mean, it's amazing. And in it's important too with art, I think, because we teach all different kinds of art. Cars are art. I mean, a jaguar, that's a woman's body. I mean, these are forms of their artwork. We even have here in Columbus at Ohio State, there's internships on designing designing cars, but house design, cooking, these are all art forms. But these are important things for people to be able to do in their quiet mind, to have something that's your own, and I don't mean just mindfulness sort of stuff, but something that you can turn to that's not, this kind of thing, which
On the
just
phone, right? Yeah.
that you're just taking in someone else's information. You're not sort of letting your heart, soul, brain percolate again, like, who am I?
Yeah.
And your life is a creation. It's not about going backwards to your innocence. It's, to me, integrating, yes, the innocence, and integrating with all the lessons of a weary, broken world, with your creative high mind, whatever you believe spiritually or not, but the whole of it, your connections, and then this miraculous possibility, like the people in Sandy Hook, that the human spirit can rise, like Pele kicking a soccer ball, like the human spirit, or Jerry West buzzer shot, like the human spirit rises. And it's like, it's like stand in amazement, right? And but it's so easy to stand there and go, this tragedy is beyond. And I was on a podcast once, and I said, look, none of us get out of here alive, okay? And I say that, and people like back up, and then it's like, well, it's true. And the thing is, like, the first noble truth in Buddhism is all of life is suffering. Once you get that down, the rest is easy. I mean, right? Because
Right.
the bumps are the road. The bumps are not in the road, they are the road.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, like, get some better shocks on your car and it's all right. I mean, in a way, I mean, I personally, I just don't expect things to go well, and then they go well.
And
You
and
know?
it's a pleasant surprise when, right, if you don't have the high expectations, then everything goes well, when
Right.
they
I mean,
uh,
yeah,
you know,
and I say that, and just like a day or two ago, I was like crying about something, but it, it can be both. It can. Life is really, 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 really hard. It's a really weary world sometimes. A lot of times, it's also a really, really amazingly, surprisingly amazing world. It,
yeah.
in
And there's beauty in the chaos sometimes too. There's beauty out there. Even in the midst of uh combat, or in the midst of uh you know a riot or some uprising, or whatever, you can find something that is beautiful in those situations. There's you know Maybe there's a child who's caught up in one of those situations, but that child is still a beautiful person, right? And it's like that,
Yeah.
you can focus on that and be like, okay, yeah, all of this sucks, but there's still some good here, right? And maybe we can focus on that. It's like, well, how do we make it better for that person? And when you were talking earlier in the beginning of this episode, you were talking about the kid that was talking about how life is like the most beautiful form of art. I forget exactly how it was
Yeah.
phrased, but something along those lines, right? And I started thinking about the guy who started off, I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't do any of this stuff, and then you were taking pictures throughout the course of the summer, and you showed how all of that came together at the end of now you really can, right? And so when you look at it, it's like it's almost like a flip book, the way I thought of it. Like, you used to
Yeah.
draw like those little stick figures, and draw, the soccer ball, being kicked across the page or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
Um,
That's cool.
it's almost like that, where you're looking at the progression of I can't do it to holy crap, here it is. I did it, and
Completely. Yeah.
that's a small section of this person's life, of going from I can't to I did. And
And I will.
that's and I will again, and I'll continue, and I'll persevere, and I'll be able to overcome those other things that I thought I can't, because hell, I just did. And
Right.
so that's a small piece of this person's life, but that can be used as fuel to help overcome other areas in their life, where I can't get over this tragedy. I can't uh forgive myself for the things that I did. I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, yes, you can.
Right.
It's
Right.
hard, but you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
When things go sideways, will you be prepared? Some people are concerned they might have to go for a long time without electricity or even food. That's why I want to introduce you to 4patriots.com. Get preparedness products you can use now, and that could save your life later. My favorite is 4Patriots' new solar generator, the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. It uses the endless free power of the sun to power lights, your TV, medical equipment, even run your fridge. Plus, it's expandable and comes with a free solar panel. Or pick up one of 4Patriots' best-selling survival food kits. Delicious tasting and designed to last for 25 years. They even have kits with real meat, and if the power's out, no worries. Just boil water over a fire, simmer, and serve. You'll enjoy a hot meal and stay safe in a crisis. More smart people than ever are finding 4Patriots. Over 2 million customers trust them, and you might have even seen them on TV. I had the folks at 4Patriots set up a special page for you at 4patriots.com/drive-on, so that listeners of this podcast can see this week's discounts and deals before they go away. Go to 4patriots.com/drive-on, but hurry, these deals won't last long. Save more and get peace of mind now by going to 4patriots.com/drive-on. Drive on.
You said something earlier about when we were talking about like going over a problem, and I
Yeah.
wanted to say, it's like practicing, I can't. It's like
Right.
we end up practicing, and we're learning about the brain. You literally entrench that in the brain. So I think the other part of creativity and art is it's whimsical. It creates a sense of awe. It gets us out of that practice. When I was at the prison, I was in charge of the psychiatric inpatient unit at the prison, and we would have to at times use these paper gowns, if for different levels of security.
Okay.
So we decided to do a fashion show using the paper gowns, and allowing the women to. It was like Project Runway. We okay. We were like the precursor to Project Runway at North Carolina Correctional Institute for Women. Okay, and you can't even. We were laughing and having the greatest time,
Yeah.
and you would have never known that it was the psychiatric unit at a maximum security prison. And you talk about like elevating the moment and redemption, like Shawshank Redemption, right? This
Right.
was right. And I have to say, like, a bunch of chicks having a fashion show, that's Shawshank Redemption now there, right? And
Right.
I'm going to tell you, some of those were like pretty nice dresses.
That's funny. That's funny. And it's like you said, it's creative. Probably whoever was in whatever factory somewhere making those paper gowns, they probably never expected that they would end up in a correctional facility
No
being
kidding. No.
designed for a fashion show of some sort. They never would have envisioned something
Yeah,
along
no
those lines
kidding, right?
happening, right? But what you just mentioned earlier, you know, where when you're kind of dwelling on the past and you're talking about that thing that happened over and over again, and it's like you're practicing that thing, and it's like you're just practicing the wrong thing, and you can get really good at doing the wrong thing, because practice, like the saying, practice makes perfect is not correct. It's perfect practice makes perfect. And if you are just practicing for the sake of practicing and you're not doing the right thing, like for example, my son, he pitches in baseball, and he was having trouble with some of his pitching, and he just kept doing the same thing over and over and over and over. And I said, "Hey, you're going to get really good doing that." And he looked at me and he's like, "Yeah, but I'm still having this problem." And I go, "Yeah, you're going to get really good at doing it the wrong way."
Well said.
Because that's what you're doing. You're doing it the wrong way, and you're doing it again the wrong way, and again and again and again. And it just
Wow.
reinforces it. It creates the muscle memory of doing the wrong thing. And so when you're out there in a game and it's a stressful situation and everything, you're going to rely on that muscle memory, and you're just going to go back and do the wrong thing. So I said, break that habit, do something different, change it up. When I was younger, I was uh, playing golf, and I had this terrible slice. I would always hit the ball and it would always slice, and I couldn't figure it out. And I realized one day I was on the driving range just practicing, and I realized I could keep doing the same thing over and over again. And it's basically the definition of insanity. If you do the same thing expecting a different result, well, that's
Yeah,
insane, right? And
yeah,
so I said, okay, well, I need to change something up. So I started making little adjustments here and there. Okay, that didn't work. That
yeah.
didn't make it any better. So let's go back and let's change something else. All it was all I needed to do was just a simple change in my grip, just a little small change, and everything started going straight. And I was like, where has this been for the last however many years, 10, 15
Yeah.
years, however long it had been. I- And I had been, well, what I was doing, I was practicing the wrong way, and I was getting really good at doing it the wrong way. Like if I wanted the ball to go to the right all the time, I'd have been great at doing that.
Right,
But
right.
that's not what you want to
Yeah,
do, and you want to practice the right thing. So I think going back to your point, dwelling on that thing that happened, you're practicing the wrong thing. What is the thing that you want to do? How do you want to adjust? Look at that and focus on that, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just as the way the way you've said it, so well said. Just the getting entrenched and doing the wrong thing, and not to just stop and go, "What am I doing?" Can I at
Right.
least imagine the simplest grit? It's the simplest adjustment, but I've done that in so many areas where I get stuck, where I just don't take a moment to pause and reconsider. I say that I've seen this so many times in personal development, where people will just stick with a therapist or even psychotropic meds years and years and years and years and years, and it's the same thing and it doesn't work. And like, well, how come you keep doing it?
Right. Yeah.
But I could say that to myself in so many different areas of my life, until a friend or someone says, "So why do you keep doing it?" And then I go, "Thank you. I just didn't realize I needed to stop."
Yeah.
So I really do try to check myself and pause. And for me, the holiday season, that's what it's all about, is just taking a minute to pause. It's not all about all the rushing around and stuff. It's just uh really, what have I done all year? And that Beatles, that John Lennon song, "So It's Christmas, what have you done?" It's just like, I love that.
Yeah. 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 And what have you done? And not to say that it's all good or all bad. It just it's what you did, right? And maybe
Right.
you can say, okay, I've been doing this thing and I'm trying to accomplish this goal, whatever this goal happens to be. Um, and I don't really feel like I'm getting anywhere. Maybe you started the year with a weight loss plan and you're going to the gym and you think you're eating all the right foods and you're doing all this kind of stuff, but there's something missing. Maybe you're not exercising enough, or maybe you're still overeating or whatever. It's like, okay, well, stop doing that because you're getting really good at increasing your weight, and that's not where you want to be, right? It's
Right.
just
Right.
that type of mindset, but you can apply that to things mentally too, in your mental health and your physical health, all throughout your life. You can apply that same type of concept, and I like the way that you put that there. Yeah.
Yeah. I
um
mean, the other line in that song is, "Another year older, a new one's just begun." It's time. It's the only commodity. I mean, that's the only thing I care about now. I don't, I mean, what I want, money can't buy. I'm not interested in stuff and junk.
yeah.
It's meaningless to me now.
Yeah, and we all have only so much time here. Like you said, the we all have an expiration date. At some point we're checking out of this
Yeah.
hotel. So um uh, why not make the best of it? And I think of it this way too, especially in regards to a military context. A lot of times folks are coming back from deployments and things, and maybe they lost a friend or something, and um, that that friend, unfortunately, is not coming back. They're gone, and um, people blame themselves. They feel guilty. Um, they're just beating themselves up, and it kills me to see them when they're doing this, because it's like that person who didn't make it, uh, if they were looking at you now, they'd be like, "What the hell are you doing? Why are you why are you doing this? Why aren't you out there living your life? I didn't have the chance to live my life. You do. Go do that. Go and live. Go enjoy life. Go find the beauty or joy or happiness, or find something, and don't sit there and beat yourself up and kill yourself over what happened to me. Like, that would be my message
Oh,
if that was
totally.
me. Uh, but
I
but we
have
do that still.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
tough.
I have a really good friend, first sergeant, and he gave, gives the orders, right?
Yeah.
And lost a best bud. They were playing softball the night before, and hey, it's dangerous business being a soldier. It's dangerous business, okay?
Right.
And you're dealing with really, really dangerous equipment, and it happened. And literally, what has it been, 30, 40 years maybe? And I mean, I have nothing but compassion, but it's the same, like the way you're describing the way you said it. It's the same channel, and it's this being beaten up. And my awareness with regard to military is, I gave the order, I gave the order, I gave the order. And there's different pieces that you all carry that we don't. And I feel like that's really important in the work I do with veterans, that you all do have a different burden altogether. And it's important. I think it's really important to honor that. And it's also, as first sergeant, part of the duty, the job, it is to be that. It's in what makes him so good at being a first sergeant, and why he became a first sergeant, is that the same thing that keeps him ingrained in that mentality, right? So there's a psychology to this whole thing that can keep a person trapped in some of the thoughts that aren't helpful and moving on, if that makes sense.
It does. I know what you're saying, because when you're in the military, for the folks who are listening, a lot of veterans and service members are probably listening, but there's some who maybe aren't. But when you're in the military, you are trained as if everything is pretty much life and death, because a lot of times it is. If you're not moving with intensity or purpose, and you're not focused on the mission, and you're not paying attention to the things around you, your situational awareness, if that's not where it needs to be, that's where people get injured, people get killed. Bad things happen when you're not in that mode. And so that's how you train. That's how you're taught to be, is doing everything with purpose, intention, paying attention to your surroundings, all of that stuff. That's just ingrained in you, and that's how you're supposed to act, and that's how you're supposed to just function and operate, is in that manner. And even in a non-combat situation, even when you're just back at the barracks, and you're doing whatever, and you're not in that mode, maybe not quite as high intensity, but when you're not paying attention to your surroundings and you bump into somebody or whatever, it's like, what are you doing? Why aren't you paying attention to that? And they drill it into you, right?
Yes.
And that's just life in the military. And so now let's take this outside of the military and just apply this to everyday life. And now that's how you're operating, and you're at this high intensity when you're in the grocery store, and when you're someone bumps their carriage into you in the grocery store, and you're about to flip out at that person. It's like, it was an accident, man. It's not that big a deal. Like, you can take it down a notch. But I think one of the things that the military has done well is they've ingrained that into the military personnel, because you need that in a combat situation. But what they haven't done is installed the dimmer switch, where you can turn it down a little bit. Turn it down. It doesn't need to be 100% all the time, because there's a lot of people operate, it's either 0 when you're sleeping, or it's at 100, and there's really no in between. There's a dimmer switch. You could bring that down, and you can go to the grocery store at maybe a 10. You don't have to be all the way at 100.
Well, I like how you said that dimmer switch. I remember at Fort Bragg, I was standing with the colonel. We were talking about how, what we really did the soldiers need more on the deployment or reentry, and they wouldn't give us the funding on reentry. And my sense was, I said, the things that are in training are absolutely contrary to the kinds of things that they will be expected to do when they come back to marriages and parenting and all the softness and listening and engaging and all these and all that dynamic, and you hit that door at the house and you're in it. I mean, or off the plane, you're
Yeah.
in the soup, and everybody's like on it, and your kids, they're not even the same kids. If they've gone from 8 to 10, they're double digits, and they were 8. That you've got to. It was your little girl, and now it's like you know what I
Big
mean?
uh-oh. Yeah.
Now you're protecting the perimeter, right? It's all it's it's just rockets are like it's I'm going to say it's unfair. It's not fair, in my opinion.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've thought of is that definitely there needs to be something on the reentry, the reintegration side of things. However, in my own experience, I found that when I got back from deployment, I didn't care what anyone had to say about anything. I was home and I wanted to be with my family. I didn't want to go to any of the classes or any of the trainings or any of the I would go in, I'd check the box, yes, I was here, and I'd leave.
Oh,
Any of the mental health providers that they had the mandatory screenings afterwards. Yep, everything's fine. I'm not having any problems. I want to leave. I want to go home to my family. And thinking about that experience, and I've had conversations with other people who've had a similar experience, and this is not a universal. I can't say this is everybody's experience, but
mhm.
it was mine, and so I'm sharing it. But one of the things that I and other people have talked about, and I think might be beneficial, is uh, sort of like resiliency training beforehand. Just like you go to the gym and you exercise, certain muscles and you get, training in that. When you need to use that muscle more intensely, it's a whole lot easier to do that had you had the prior training, as opposed to I've never lifted weights, I've never stepped foot in a gym, I've never done anything like that, and now I need to use this muscle with super high intensity.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to need physical therapy. I'm going to need,
Right, right.
all of this extra. So I'm going to need a lot of extra work to fix that muscle after the fact if I've never
Right.
exercised it at
Yeah.
all. And so, how do we incorporate some sort of resiliency beforehand so that way when they do experience these traumatic events and they do have these problems, they come back and they're able to bounce back a little bit easier, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think what I'm hearing you say is the traditional stuff in the traditional way, like you come back, your mental health classes. I think that's, for me, I looked at the profession or the whole of what I've done, and I said where it. I looked at where the gaps were,
Yeah.
and and I, being a creative person, I see where different kinds of things make more sense.
Yep.
Like in my mind, you come home, why would anyone want to go to a traditional class? I do something with families, it's called kintsugi. And what I would do with it for reentry, this would be my fantasy with a military family. It's called kintsugi. In Japan, when pottery breaks, they put it together with gold leaf, right?
Yes.
And people, and this is like a big part of what we do. And the more gold veins are in the pottery, the more beautiful it is. And of course, the metaphor being brokenness makes you more beautiful, and
Sure.
consider that the next time you break. So in families, what we do is we break pottery and we put it back together slowly, and we talk about where things in the family might have cracks or breaks, and we hold it up to the light, and where the light shines through the gold. And it's an event with the family. somebody doesn't have to leave the family again, which doesn't make sense to me. Why would you want to leave and go to a class? And you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's so, to me, and to me, it would be something like that, that to me is, and of course I know this is like me and my creative brain of
sure.
what it would look like, but why not? And then again, why not? If Sandy Hook could come up with something, why couldn't we come up with really creative ways to bring our soldiers back and integrate our families and
Yeah.
teach this stuff in different ways? But I mean, I don't know. I only can say this is just my thinking, and it seems like it's helped people in measurable ways. So
I think there needs to be um, a combination of things. So, stuff like what you were just talking about, I think would be great. The traditional therapy, because everybody wants or will respond to something differently, and so having all these options available, I think, are great. Um, but I feel like the after um, is kind of like cleaning up the mess that shouldn't have existed in the first place. If we did a better job in the first place, training people and getting the right stuff in the first place, we shouldn't have to deal with the aftermath and the after effects
absolutely.
like that. And so, but it's a tough sell when you're talking to especially the military. You got budgets and things like that, and it's
Right.
like,
Right.
how do we fit in the budget uh funding for something that may or may not be needed? you know
Well, I
um
will say
it's
this.
tough.
I do totally agree with you about resiliency. The data with regard to art therapy with PTSD in the military, and I'm not trying to push but the data is very, very strong.
Yeah.
And that's just really interesting to me, um, that it comes out to show how really effective it is. And again, the museums that exist that show our veteran art is
Yeah.
just really inspiring.
And
But
I've seen some incredible artwork from some veteran artists. And it's the widest range of things. You were talking about pottery and painting and all the traditional kind of artwork that you would think about, but there's even people who have painted murals on the side of buildings with like spray paint kind of thing, and they were just a plain brick wall with nothing on it, and it turned into this m- magnificent looking thing after the fact, right? And then you said, I think earlier, even cars and other things like that, even creating furniture, the woodwork and the getting the patterns of the fabrics and all that kind of stuff. All of that is an art form in and of itself too, right? And so there's so many different ways that you can create and express yourself. And I've used it myself in various at various times, and uh, it's helped me. My wife even mentioned to me uh, while I was painting, she said, "You just seem so much happier when you're doing that," and it was um, in a way it was kind of eye opening, because I was like, I didn't think I was really that bad, but without it, but maybe I am, and so. Uh, when I'm doing that, I just find that I kind of lose myself in what I'm doing, and the things that are stressing me out or worrying me or bothering me, that they don't exist on that canvas anymore. And so it's almost like that stuff doesn't matter. um Obviously reality kicks in and it does matter, but for a period of time it kind of brings me back down to a certain level, and that's a nice place to be. And I think a great way for people to kind of experience a little bit of that benefit is through doing something creative like.
right.
um so could you tell people a little bit more about where they can go to find out more about what you do and how they can get involved or get in touch if they're interested in participating in some of the stuff that you do.
Well, we have a website. It's artfortheheartfoundation.org. We have an office in Westerville, Ohio. You can reach me at drvecchiogroup@gmail.com.
Awesome.
And all of our phone numbers, our office address. We also have an office in North Carolina.
Okay.
But it's all on the website.
Excellent. And I will put a link to that in the show notes as well. So folks can find the information that they need if they're interested in participating. And I'm sure, there's going to be some people out there who, just didn't know where to get started and, maybe need a little bit of guidance and need just a push outside of that comfort zone where you look at a blank piece of paper, blank canvas or whatever, and you just don't know where to get started. And you need to kind of experience that, maybe with a little bit of guidance. And I think, and like you said, you do them kind of like over Zoom type meetings, right? And so you can do it from the comfort of your home or wherever it is that's comfortable for you. You don't have to go out to, a big group of people who might be unfamiliar. You may not want to be in that kind of setting quite yet. This to me seems like a great way to do that. So again, the link will be in the show notes for anyone who is interested. So before we wrap up this episode, I like to end the episodes with a little bit of humor, just to kind of leave it on a light note. Sometimes we talk about some heavy, dark things that may not be great just to end it there. You know what I mean? And so I like to just for all episodes, I try to inject some sort of humor, whether it's me telling a joke and making a fool of myself because it's corny, whatever, or watching a funny video, whatever it is, just try to make people laugh. In this case, I got just a quick joke here to hopefully wrap up this episode and put some smiles on people's faces. So the joke is here. U.S. military had too many generals, so it offered a significant lump sum to anyone who retired, any of the generals who volunteered to retire. And the way they decided how much each person would get is they would measure, whoever retired, measure from any point on their body to any other point and pay $5,000 per inch. And the generals got to choose which 2 points on their body that they measured between. So the first general asked to be measured from the top of his head to the tip of his toes, and he was paid $400,000. And the second general was a little smarter and asked to be measured from the tip of his outstretched arms over his head to the tip of his toes, and he was paid $600,000. Then the last general came in and asked to be measured from his left butt cheek to his right butt cheek. And the person who was measuring said, "Are you sure about that? Doesn't seem like it's that far." And the general said, "Yeah, last I remember, my right butt cheek got shot off in Vietnam." I think he took the cake with that one.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you again for taking the time to join us and sharing, everything that you do. I really do appreciate all that you do.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Yes, likewise.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Drive On podcast. If you want to support the show, please check out Scott's book, Surviving Son, on Amazon. All of the sales from that book go directly back into this podcast and work to help veterans in need. You can also follow the Drive On podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts.